Welcome to the Five Journeys podcast.
Live like you matter. Lexi Davidson is our guest today, and she is the voice and personality behind Lexi's Clean Living. Since her launch in June 2013, Lexi has become an influential voice in the clean eating and clean living space. Her growing audience consistently turns to her as a leader and trusted source for delicious, nutrient-dense foods that friends and family love, along with guidance on how to live a clean and healthy lifestyle. Welcome, Lexi. We're so happy to have you here today.
Wow. Thank you for that lovely intro.
We
so
love
excited
you.
to be here. I love you guys. This is going to be great.
Yeah. So talk to us.
Okay. Well,
A million questions. So
yeah.
where do we start? You want to start with the beginning or you want to start in the middle?
We start with the middle and then go to the beginning.
Rock and roll. What's clean living?
Clean living. Okay. Well, I'm happy you asked this actually first before even getting to know, asking my story and all of that, because what I think the biggest takeaway here, right, when you're thinking about clean eating, clean living, toxins, all of this stuff that you guys are, well versed in and we all talk about, is having it be realistic in a lifestyle, so it's not clean eating, clean living. It's not a diet change, per se. It's not, removing every single toxin in your life all at once and spending a fortune. It's really just a lifestyle shift. And it's really just cleaning up some of the toxins and ingredients and processed foods and all these things that are in our life, more than ever, and just being more aware and reading ingredients and making choices that we feel good about and starting in a place that, we are not feeling overwhelmed about. So in a nutshell, it's a lifestyle shift that is approachable and that will help us, live long, healthy lives, hopefully.
Sounds like sustainable too.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That's the hope, right?
So how do you gauge though, right? Because some people want to start going to eat to get their grains from some bulk supermarket and use only glass, etc. And some people want to maybe start with eating a few organic vegetables, adding a few organic vegetables. Where do you start? How do you
always
gauge?
Yeah, well, there's a few factors, right? Money. I hope, and my hope and dream and an impact that I hope to have is to make a shift. When I started my journey, grass-fed beef was like $13.99. Now you can get it for $7-ish, so making it accessible for everyone. But so my point being is we have to start where we are, where what's affordable, what's realistic. If you have, a whole family that you're feeding, then maybe swapping every ingredient right away is not realistic and it's okay, and I feel like that's when other things come into the factor, like sleep and stress and all of this. It's not, there's all these pillars of health and clean living that aren't just food, which I've gotten more and more into. But to answer your question, the thing that I always say is, and I talk about this mostly in self-care products, but it relates to everything, is what do you use every single day? Right? So if toothpaste, maybe if that's something you're like, ooh, I was looking at those ingredients, or body wash for a better example. And I'm like, oh, that's what's in the Dove body wash. We use that every day. And my whole family uses that every day. Okay. That could be a first swap. That could be that could be a good transition item that makes sense. And we use it all the time. So you go from, I think of it as a pyramid. So we're going from what we're using every single day to making smaller changes, maybe for stuff that we're not using every day, but that are important and that do matter. So maybe eventually it's ditching your Teflon nonstick pans. But that may not be reality right away. And that's okay too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How'd you get into this?
We want to know your story.
Oh man. I've known you guys for a long time. I feel like it's kind of fun all coming together, all these different books and podcasts. And so in 2013, I had all sorts of stomach issues. I thought I was eating super clean at the time, air quotes, because I was
Can you give
learning.
an example of that, Lexi? Because I think most people, when you say to them how to eat, they're like, oh, I'm really clean. What do you have for breakfast? Cereal. Oh, what do you have for lunch? A sandwich. What do you have for dinner? Pasta. So
but everybody comes in to at least my office saying they're healthy.
Yeah.
Until they list the
they
10,
don't
10
know.
things going on.
They tell me that they don't feel well. But when you say you thought you were eating pretty clean at the time, what did that look like? So people have a reference.
Okay. So at the time I was doing P90X, which is like a workout program. It's like a Beachbody fitness program. So me and my husband, Mike, we were doing it like 5-6 days a week. We were feeling really strong. We were doing good. And my example that I always give is I was eating protein pancakes every single day. So it was protein powder. I was a teacher. I don't know what kind of protein powder I was buying then. It was probably SFH, but anyway, protein powder, banana, egg. And then, I would start adding some like other things into it, but I was eating that every single day. And then what else was I eating?
Was there flour in it?
No, because at that point I was trying to eliminate flour, which I'll get to in a second. But so like that's just an example of, that's not bad, but I wouldn't eat that every single day right now. It may not be the best example, but that's the first one that comes to mind. Or, I was making like, what was I bringing? I would just make things that I was like, oh, this is like, I'm eating so healthy. But then, okay, here's where it gets to my story. I had all these digestive issues. Like it got to a point where I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to travel. I was so bloated all the time. My stomach was constantly in pain. I was like, not to be TMI, but like I couldn't go to the bathroom. I was super gassy. Like my stomach was not well, but then I was eating my protein pancakes and exercising and thinking I'm doing everything right. So before I actually saw Ed, I was like, for some reason, I must have found this on the internet. I was like, I'm going to cut out a few things from my diet that I've heard can be inflammatory. Grains, actually it was just gluten and dairy at the time. So that was in January 2013. I cut out gluten and dairy and pretty, significantly noticed a difference fairly quickly. It wasn't 100%.
The bad and the good news, right?
Yeah.
Good news,
it's like, okay, like I don't really know what this means. It wasn't 100%, which is, we'll get to another point in a second, but I was like, wow, okay, like there's a shift that's happening here. So at the time I was like, to my husband, Mike, I was like, Mike, I'm going to start an Instagram and share these recipes that I'm making because they're really good. And at the time there wasn't like brands like Siete Foods making awesome tortillas with good ingredients. And there weren't these options everywhere.
Back in the days.
Back in the day, So, oh man. So, even in my cookbook from 2016, we have homemade tortillas. We just have all these things that like weren't accessible. I have a kid now and I definitely am not making my own tortillas anymore. So, okay. So fast forward, this was January and Mike's like, you're not going to be able to give up the bread basket. I'm like, I don't know what Instagram is, but like, okay, but like, cool. Have fun. I start sharing on Instagram I'm exercising, but I'm changing my diet and here's why. And I started sharing recipes. There was no website. It was like, I think it was Alexis K916. Like this is not intended to be a business at all. I was like, maybe I can help a person or two. I don't know. And it started growing like very, very, very quickly. And then throughout the next probably 6 months or so till June, people would say to me, they're like, do you have a place where we can find all these recipes? And I was like, no, just scroll back on my Instagram. And then I was like, wait a minute, like this could really help people. I'm loving this. Let me make a website. So I made like a cheapo website, had no idea what I was doing. We came up with a name, which was Lexis Clean Kitchen. And, from there, it really just started taking off. But it was around that time that I was like, you know what? I'm doing really well with my like makeshift DIY elimination diet that I've, decided I was going to do. I'm feeling a bit better, but I need a little help. I need like that extra 10, 15%. I need to get to like what I thought would be optimal health. So like, that's how I came and took on you, Ed. And we, at the time I had candida, overgrowth, and a few other things were going on, but that was like the main thing. So I did a liver detox. I really cleaned up more. Like I cut out grains. I was like super squeaky clean. And I'll never forget you made a recommendation, which I don't often recommend supplements to the masses because it just feels irresponsible, but magnesium, so like changed my life because it started helping me go to the bathroom. I mean, everything just started shifting in a positive direction. So
you started moving.
Moving in all the ways, right? Like there was so much movement.
This is a health show. There's no TMI.
Exactly.
Just FYI.
I was like, okay, I'll just talk about going to the bathroom all day. And it was pretty significant in my life. I mean, it changed my life. Food changed my life. Figuring out what was actually going on, like what was actually the causes, was obviously what needed to happen. I was doing my own journey to heal my body, but I wanted to know what was actually going on, and I actually needed to know to continue my path to where I am now. And now, just to bring it full circle, it's like I do have a little more flexibility now in what I eat. So, and I always like to say that to people because I feel like people really struggle, and I did too. And it was like, I'll never forget this actually. Ed, you said to me, okay, so like no fruit, no, like you have to like, cause we were doing this candida protocol, at the time. And I was like, wait a minute. I cut out gluten, I cut out dairy, I did all this, and now I'm coming here and now I can't have an apple. Or a banana in my protein pancakes.
You're so mean.
I am.
No.
And it was apple season, I'm sure, right? She's like, no McCowns this year.
I was like, no bananas on my protein pancakes. I actually think I asked you if I could have caramel apple martinis, and you were like, are you kidding?
Which you may or may not have been, right?
Yeah, I wasn't kidding, but you were like, are you kidding? No, I was definitely not kidding at the time. That it was a struggle. And so I always say this is like, while a lot of these things are inflammatory, and you guys know this, we talk about this all the time, but like a lot of these things can cause issues over and over in many people, not just people that are struggling with health, with gut issues or skin issues or whatever the case may be, but it doesn't always have to be forever. And it might be like for us now, I would say we're like 90-10, 80-20 at times. Like we have the flexibility to be like, you know what? That homemade sourdough looks really, really good. Like I'm gonna give that a whirl.
But you're identifying that it's a special treat as opposed to a way of life, or it is something that's really mindfully cherished, not just this is how we do it.
Well, it's also about the body's resiliency, really. Because
exactly,
you had to get through something, take care of your body, and now your body's able to take care of you, even if you're not quote unquote whatever that means 100%.
Totally, and
your body
feel
can handle it.
Yeah, and what was extra, like also very interesting, was going through pregnancy and having my body be able to kind of handle things that it couldn't, and I was like, all right, I'm riding this wave, which is funny because you would think I'd be like extra squeaky clean while I was pregnant, but I'm like, ooh. My stomach doesn't hate me if I eat that. Like I'm going to eat it. And now, I'm 16 months out of my postpartum. And sometimes I'm like, I think my stomach could still handle it. Now I'm like, no,
not so much.
Got to reel it back a little. But
pregnancy is definitely a special time in many ways.
People talk about years of BC and AC. And for me, it's not about what year is it? It's before children and after children is your BC and AC. So you can't, especially with the sleep deprivation and making sure you're raising a little human being, you can't tolerate the same stuff you could tolerate, and your immune system's different. So it's totally different.
And then you're like, wait, I have to eat. I'm nursing on that. And then you're like, but I have to take care of this human first. So like, I'll eat later. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I really need to eat now, So it's just a whole different ball game.
It really is.
That's how I got into it. And then, started Instagram January 2013, website 2013. And it was kind of like makeshift. I threw it together, and then eventually I started working with a developer and a design team. But I was a teacher. I was an elementary art teacher, and I loved it. And then it got to a point where I had 2 full-time jobs, and I was up at 5 a.m. creating content for one of my first clients, which was American Express, for their healthy living series on their Tumblr account. Funny enough, Tumblr is throwback now. And it got to a point where it was a calculated decision. I was like, I'm going to give this a try. And yeah, I've been doing it full time ever since 2015 was when I
2015?
left teaching. Yeah, that was when I left teaching.
So it sounds like your real passion is to help people really find their place in their healthy living journey, I'll say. Because it's really, you have a huge audience at this point, right?
Yeah.
So not everybody's going to need the same thing. So it sounds
exactly. And it's not realistic for everyone, right? Like, money is a huge factor. I wish that wasn't the case, but it is, and a lot of the advocacy work I do at the self-care industry and the beauty and skincare industry is about that. It's getting safer products into the hands of everyone, not just, the people that can afford a $20 body wash. So, man, it matters so much, even in our drinking water. We're in the town that I live in. We have PFAS in our water. We got a letter in January, in March, saying that since December and January, our levels were way too high. And I know that standards have changed in Massachusetts, but they were like, if you're nursing, breastfeeding, if you're nursing, or have a newborn or pregnant, absolutely do not use the water in your home. And we're like, I'm sorry.
Oops.
I'm nursing, now feeding, like now she's just started solids. And how long has this actually been going on? So we just actually ended up going to town recently, filtering our water, because I think water is a big, big issue. I really believe we don't have access to safe drinking water. And I know it's different, compared to other countries and what the issues are, but it's really a problem.
Absolutely. And we live in Newton, and theoretically, the water in Newton is supposed to be one of the best. But we just put in a whole house filter, and plus we put in a 3-part under counter filter, 2-part under counter filter.
Yeah,
it still gets dirty, even with all that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you
testing
your water.
Less. But no, in terms of when you change the filter, there's still junk there. That what is it filtering like? And that's supposed to be really good water.
And I knew, because so when we moved in, we had our water tested, not to get on a total tangent, and I knew we had chlorine in our water. I knew we had some things that our water was super hard. I knew we had water issues with our water, but this was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was like, no more. And they were like, but you can bathe her in it. I'm like, so I could bathe my 1-year-old in water that's in a forever chemical when we have MTHFR, this gene mutation that doesn't help us detox properly, and she has it. So I was just like, no. But we did reverse osmosis under our sink, but we couldn't do that in our whole house. 1, it's wasteful, and 2, we have septic. So you can't do the septic. So we had to do these carbon charcoal filters, the salt water, our basin's filter city down there. So, but here, it's just an example of being you have to meet people where they are. And what I don't want is people to feel overwhelmed. I don't want people to feel like they have to make an elaborate dinner every night. It's not realistic. We can get dinner on the table in 30 minutes and it tastes good. We can get good quality ingredients, good quality beef and, poultry and fish, even delivered to our door at a really reasonable price. And we can do this. This doesn't have to be an unachievable, non-realistic goal where you have to move to a farm and make all your own food. And maybe that would be awesome, but that's just not the reality.
Sounds fun to me.
I know. Part of me is here for, part of me is, I go back and forth, but, it has to be realistic for people, and I want it to be. I want to help people, right? That's why you guys do what you do also. We just want to help people and make it more accessible and sustainable. So
for people who are starting out, how fast should they approach change versus how slow? How do you, I mean, are you making these recommendations to people? How do you view it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's another one where it's like, I'll meet you where you are. You know, if you want all my recommendations, here we are. I can give you them all. I'm like, but that's generally not where people are at. You know what I mean? So what I say to people, and just let me just give an example of skincare and beauty, just because I'm looking at all my samples that I'm sending out of safer products. I say, like, okay, what are you running out of? You don't have to throw out all your fancy, expensive makeup that has made of talc and XYZ in it, or skincare, or face wash, or, deodorant. I mean, deodorant would be a big one that I would say that should be a change, but you can use up what you have. You'll likely be okay. But the problem is, and I have some people in my life, in my personal family, I'm just not going to get into it for them, but that are going through cancer at a really, really young age. 2 people actually in my life, very close to me. And that's where you really think, like, okay, how can I do this realistically? But also when I have, one of these people in my life, they don't think about these things. They're not thinking about their cleaning products. They're not thinking about candles. They're not thinking about all the stuff in a whole or as a big picture. They're like, okay, like maybe I can approach food, so it's really just what can you do, or what, but I always say, what are you running out of? So like, let's start there. If you're running out of face wash, let's get you a cleaner one. If you're running out of sugar, let's make a good swap for that, or a better swap, let's say.
To make a better choice, like wherever you are, level up for whatever's next on your buy list.
Yeah. But you guys would appreciate this. I recently had a house guest and they were like, oh man, you have the Baby Ganix hand sanitizer, which, I had my daughter in the peak of COVID. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I need to have some sort of hand sanitizer in the house, but I don't want one with alcohol. And I don't want one with this. And so I just got this brand. I thought I researched enough. Turns out the ingredients are just but better than, Purell, for example. But anyway, so these people come in our home and they're like, wow, I can't believe you would use that. I'm like, well, 1, it's quite judgmental, but 2, we're not using this every day. And also, I'm not going to throw it out. It's a better option. If people come to my house and they want to use it, I feel better about them using this than me putting out a thing of Purell, for example. And like, that's where I've come a long way. I used to be, and for good reason. And there's times where I go back to super squeaky clean everything. And then there's like right now, or maybe I'm 80-20 or 90-10, where I'm like, okay, we can just like calm down, because stress matters. And you've always told me that. It's like, are you meditating? It matters. Sleep matters. Like all of this stuff matters. So if we're going to make ourselves so crazy about everything, it's just that's not a sustainable way to live either,
Well, that's worse for your health, because you're going to shut down your digestion and your detox if you're all stressed out and not sleeping. So.
Exactly. So it's just kind of being, I guess, so that was just an interesting example of someone being like, I can't believe you, Lexi, would use that. I'm like, and that's where, and actually I was on a podcast recently and they were like, and a training call, 2 people said this to me recently. They're like, my kids ate pickles for dinner. If only I had my crap together like Lexi does to get dinner on the table. And I was like, whoa, okay. I think I need to be more real with people, because, my dinners aren't always lavish things that I'm not, we work through months out on our blog, on our content, on our recipes. We're testing them 6 to 12 to 15 times, depending on the recipe. Like I'm not cooking every single day, and that's what we're eating. So yeah, we do try to like always have really good options in the house, but there's some nights where I whip out the Dr. Prager's like spinach littles, and I'm aware that there's canola oil in it, and I'm not happy about it, but once in a while you do what you got to do. And I think that
what did I miss about pickles. What's wrong with pickles? Or
There's
was it
nothing
the
wrong
only
with
thing?
pickles. I think she was saying
That's
like,
all they ate.
Oh,
that
that's
was
all
all they
they
ate.
ate.
Like
Oh,
she's like,
no.
I
I
don't
handed
know.
them a
I'm like,
cucumber and said,
Yeah.
yeah. But like,
That's fine.
and she's like, oh, like Lexi probably had this crazy dinner. And my point to tell you this story is that, and this goes into like talking about social media, which we haven't talked about, but I think it's worth talking about. It's like, there's an unrealistic picture of what someone
Everything.
everything good, fair. Thank you for jumping in there because of everything. Like, no, we don't do everything perfect. I dye my hair. That's one of my vices. It's not, I'm like, people are like, have you tried to clean our hair dye? I'm like, haven't found one. It's my thing. I wear a mask. I do the best I can.
Take your detox supplements.
You do
and you're
detox.
good.
So. Like that's what I'm saying. So I certainly don't want people to think I am perfect. And with that, and I struggled with this for a long time. And I was talking about it with my therapist for a long time. Like, I don't want people to think if you eat clean or live a cleaner lifestyle or, you're doing your best and then something horrible happens, like you get cancer or something, and that can happen. You can't eat a perfect way I don't want people to think that if, I eat clean like Lexi does, that nothing will ever happen to me because that's crazy. I have my own health issues that have come up over the past number of years that are genetic and completely out of my control. And realistically, actually stress is a factor in why it was triggered. But the reality is most likely nothing was going to stop that from happening. So I just don't want people to also get that impression.
No,
so there's a lot of
it's
this
about
talk
mitigating.
now,
It's about mitigating the impact of what's happening in your body by not making it worse with food. Food will take away a layer of the problem, but it may not, especially with genetic issues. It's just going to alleviate or mitigate. It may not be the cure-all.
Oh.
It'll be the cure-all for your belly, but not necessarily for genetic stuff.
Yeah, well, but what you're speaking about, genetics is not necessarily destiny, and sometimes it is. So.
You're my destiny.
Oh, God.
So cute.
Anyway.
I just want to come in for a group hug right
I couldn't
now.
resist. I know. I wish you were actually here, Lexi.
I know.
Anyway, back to, you were making a point. Sorry.
Yes,
No,
destiny.
and I
resist.
I actually appreciate your point, Ed, to that because you can have call it, MS or something, really, really serious going on. And you can really help yourself by diet choices, by certain types of exercise, movement, by a lot of things, by supplements, by all these choices. And it's important when you do have these things come up in life, which is somewhat inevitable potentially, that you just figure out what your move is from there. How am I going to migrate it? How am I going to manage this? How am I going to make some changes that can help my cause,
Yep.
Right. And it's human. Like you were talking about MS, and there's a pretty famous physician that had MS or has MS, couldn't walk, Terry Walls.
Yep.
And,
wheelchair bound.
And she literally cured herself. Well, at least she's walking. I don't know. She might be in remission, but she talks about having, I think, either 6 or 8 portions of vegetables with each meal and really super clean, or she goes back. So even though she has this disease and she mitigates it with food, which is pretty impressive. So even though she has that predisposition, food can change things, just like you said, meditation, stress reduction, sleep, all that stuff. We talk about
all
the rainbow,
pillars.
right?
We didn't talk about the rainbow.
You guys talk about pillars, like that, with 5 journeys. And I talked about that in my first book. It's like the pillars of health are not just food, right? There's all these other factors. And it's really important to think about that. And someone else that comes to mind when you were just talking about Terry is Elena from Elena's Pantry, who, if you follow her, she's amazing. And she's such a great resource. I don't know how MS specifically came up, but and she has MS and she managed it and she differently, right? Through keto and a ton of other stuff over the years. But, she's amazing. And it really shows that food can change your life. I mean, food changed my life in a different way, obviously, but it really is. It's amazing.
Yeah. Food is medicine.
So I have one completely non sequitur question, which is,
man.
you just mentioned how you test the food. What happens to the food that you're testing and prepping before it makes it onto the showroom floor? Do you eat it? Or
everyone eats a lot of batches of things that I'm just like, by the way, this is just okay. So like my brother, he's in Connecticut and they have some stuff going on. So I've been bringing them freezer meals. So recently I brought them a big bag of like, our new grain-free pumpkin blondies and our monster cookies for just to have in the freezer if they want a snack. And I'm like, but the bags are really mixed. So I'm like, you have our final batch, which is the best batch. And then you have like 6 other batches that are just bad. So like, I don't know what cookie you're going to grab out of the bag, but like, hopefully it's okay. But no, we eat it. We eat it. We freeze it. We share it with friends and neighbors and people in need in our community. And, sometimes Mike's like, this is
that was totally non sequitur.
But Mike's like, this is not really great. I'm like, I know, but like the next batch I bet will be better, but like, we're not wasting it. So you have to eat it.
So you referenced how not every night your dinners look picture perfect. What do you suggest to people who are too busy to cook or who really feel challenged by transitioning from a boxed meal to a made meal?
Mm-hmm. I think there's 2 parts to this. Part 1 is if your family is on board, right? Because we all know that that's a struggle. If you're like, oh, okay, we're going to make this, even if it's in 30 minutes, this Instant Pot chili, it's good for us. There's tons of veggies. Everyone will feel good. It's delicious. But then everyone's like, well, I'm not eating that. There's vegetables in it. So like there is that I hear a lot.
Not everybody likes Brussels sprouts.
No, right? Like shocking. It was actually funny. I was doing this, I'm working with this email guru and he's helping us with our email marketing strategy. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make one subject line like superfood spotlight spinach. And he's like, make it superfood spotlight and take out the spinach. I'm like, why? He's like, because that's not sexy. Like no one is going to open, like that open rate's going to be less. And I'm like, oh man, I live in a bubble of like, I would want to know about all like the superfood benefits of spinach and how I can sneak it into everything and like how I'm going to cook it in the next, for the next month of my CSA having it. So it's just funny to realize that there's so many people, especially nationwide, my business is everywhere, that just, they don't eat this way or they're not aware. So it's just an interesting perspective that like, making it sound necessarily not like the healthiest thing in the world is kind of a good thing.
It's all about the spin.
Yeah. I was like, let me just give it to them. I just want to just say it exactly how it is. But yeah, so, okay. Getting dinner on the table. So there is that issue that I hear all the time from readers is how do I get my family on board if they're not? But backing up before that, there's a few tools in the kitchen that we use all the time to get dinner. I'm like, oh man, it's 4:30. I have 30 minutes to figure out what's going on the table, right? So sheet pan dinners, having an Instant Pot. An Instant Pot is an awesome resource to getting a really good dinner on the table quick.
You love our Instapot, don't you?
It makes rice. I make rice with it.
It does make rice. But honestly, it's like my chicken soup that I used to cook on the stovetop for it was almost 24 hours. It was like a process. I make it in the Instant Pot and call it with pressure coming up, call it an hour with all said and done and prep. But it's like, it's as if it's been simmering for 24 hours and you get that.
I haven't made chicken soup in that. I haven't made chicken soup in it yet.
I make a lot of things in it. It's the best. So, I mean, tools like that.
We'll have
tools
to pick
like that
your brain.
you can, yeah. Tools like that you could take out and be like, okay, or a sheet pan. Most people have a sheet pan, right? Line it with parchment paper, not aluminum foil. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
And throw on some veggies. If they're heartier veggies like potatoes, maybe throw that in first. Then throw on some chicken breast. Put a little like mustard or like make a little something like sauce or something. And she pan dinners can come together so quickly. So there are ways to make dinners really easy. Some people do really well with planning, right? So like, okay, here's my 4 dinners that I'm making this week. One night's going to be leftovers. One night we're going to do takeout. It's just like, I don't necessarily need that as like me personally, but like but it helps a lot of people save money. They're like, okay, here are the groceries I'm ordering this week. I have it down pat. I'm not thinking about anything other than what's on my meal plan tonight. So I feel like there's all these different resources, but I feel like kitchen tools is a biggie. And I'm like, when in doubt, I always have some shrimp frozen in my freezer. And I feel like shrimp defrost really, I know that sounds like a random one, but it defrosts quickly. You can buy good wild shrimp, and sometimes I don't even wait till it's fully defrosted. I throw it in the skillet, put some spices on, throw some sauce in it, make some veggies on the side, and we have dinner, and it's really, really quick. So I feel like it just takes a little prep. It takes a little thinking more than prep. And what tools do you have? My mom is like loving the air fryer because she's not a
What
cook.
are the top tools? You said Instapot, you said sheet pans, and what?
air
Sheet pan,
and
Instant Pot, I would say air fryer, a meal planning template, if that's your thing. That's not necessarily a cooking tool, but it's a really good tool. What else do we use to get dinner on the table super quick? I mean, the slow cooker, even though that's not quick, but it can be quick if you throw something in the morning and then come back later, planning ahead. So utilizing the tools that we have, utilizing these things because they're great and it helps make it dinner on the table quick.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Also, one more, not realizing that, like, if I don't make my bolognese and my sauce from scratch, then like, forget it. It's like, you can just take some ground turkey, ground beef, throw it in the skillet with some onion, garlic, good oil, and then throw in a good marinara sauce. Read the ingredients, avoid one with sugar and random oils, but throw that in there. You have like a 20-minute in a hurry meat sauce that's delicious. Throw it over some good pasta that you feel good about, and it doesn't have to be this elaborate meal to be delicious.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's great. How do you stick to that when your family wants nothing to do with it?
You force it.
Not that that has
you
ever
open
happened.
their mouth and you force it down, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's one method. Will it work? Up in the air. Unclear.
Let us know.
So me and Mike were not healthy eaters like before, call it 2012-ish. In high school, I ate Taco Bell all the time, probably hence why I had all these gut health issues. I didn't eat great. I was super picky. And so was Mike. So then when we made the shift and I was like, okay, like I'm making this, like you're going to eat it. And it took time for him to get adjusted, but he was pretty on board. So let me say that like my experience with that, I haven't, and Skylar, she thinks lentil pasta is pasta. So I'm like, I'm going to ride this out as long as I can. But so I don't have that experience where people are fighting me because I didn't start this journey with teenagers in the house, but I talk to many people that do, and I try to help them navigate that. And Mike, actually, my husband, gave me a really good point. He was like, this is really funny. This is a really funny story. He's like, I hated broccoli, but I started liking it when I would eat Panera broccoli cheddar soup in college. And then it was like that exposure, which were like, who didn't like that, but like not good. But that exposure to the little bit of broccoli that's probably in it made him be a little open to trying my like burnt garlicky broccoli that I make. And like those little exposures really help, It's like, just give it a try. If you don't like it, we're not going to like make you crazy and make you eat everything, but little exposures, give them a little try. And then eventually they might, and you know what? The other thing is they're going to feel better. Like they will. So they're going to see that too. So it really depends on where you're at. If it's like, if you have a spouse or a partner that's not on board, but they're not feeling good, but then they start feeling better if they give things a try and they're a little open, then great. Teenagers might be a little tougher. And that sense, maybe like, here's what's for dinner,
Yeah, well,
give it a
one
try.
thing you're pointing out that I really love is people really think their tastes are fixed. Like, I like this, I don't like this, and that's how it's going to be the rest of my life.
But Nana hates bananas.
But now she can't smell them, so it's okay.
It's all good.
So the reality
Wait,
is...
who? I missed something.
Our second daughter, Ariana, whom we call Nana, hates bananas, decided at 4 that was it. She was never going to look another banana in the face, much less be around it. But she now can't smell it because she had COVID and she can't smell. And so she can't smell the bananas. They are much less offensive to her. But I don't know if she ate the banana bread that we made.
Didn't. No, she still won't eat it, but it won't. She's not offended if people eat it around her, though.
Yeah, she used to have to leave the room.
But no way.
Back to my point.
It was just
you were making a point.
I hope she gets her smile back, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's coming.
Yeah.
No, the reality is taste is not fixed. And as we grow, our tastes change and our taste buds change. And the best example I use is when people go on a fast. When I go on a fast, I'll say, I grew up on pastries and carbs, as a lot of people did, and it's easy for me to come back to that reality, like wanting that back. But as soon as I go on a 3 or 5 day fast, I love that steamed cabbage that has nothing in it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting phenomenon to watch him do a fast and be like, you need cabbage today. Or
the simplest things have the most flavor. Yeah. And then your taste buds change significantly. So taste is not fixed.
So your example is like, for anyone listening here who I assume not everyone is going on these wonderful fasts and having these experiences.
Wonderful.
I know, not wonderful fast.
Well, long game.
Good for you.
It's a long game thought.
Right.
For the average person, like an example could just be, I hated mushrooms growing up. You couldn't pay me to eat mushrooms. Now I'm like, bring on the mushrooms. It's just like maybe you taste it in a dish that's so yummy and you're like, oh, okay. And then you get the confidence. You're like, I can't make that at home. But then you get the confidence like, oh, but if I throw in a ton of garlic, and that could be delicious. So it's just a little exposure, and then realizing, but you're right. Like, taste change, especially if you cut out sugar. If anyone has done like a full on, like complete cut out of sugar, you're like, wow, like that lemon is sweet. Like, you know what I mean? Or something so random that you're like, it's not, but it is now,
I want to highlight something you also just said sort of obliquely, but didn't say straight out. Like, when you like or don't like a substance, any vegetable has probably 50 different ways you could make it. So you might not like the raw broccoli floret, but when you've sauteed or steamed it and put it into a soup, or you've blended it into a patty, or you've mixed it with something else, maybe it tastes a little bit better. And you can't blanket say you don't like it. You need to try all these forms of it.
Yeah,
because it tastes different when it's in different forms. So
right.
And then we talk about the French kids.
Yes, French kids eat everything. Yeah, you should read this book, Lexi, because it's all about, you have this window until kids are 3 where they'll eat anything. And then after 3,
baby?
No, it's called French Kids Eat Everything, about a woman who moved to France and what a culture shock it was, because French kids don't complain about food. They eat everything. They're the best eaters. And her American kids had to acclimate and learn what it was. Really great, really well done. So
I know.
I'm so sorry.
It's just about, exactly. So it's about having kids keep trying. And what is it, 15
times? You got to try the same thing 15 times, not just
and
different.
That's the same thing with sales and marketing, and not to talk about business, but like, you have to expose someone generally 12 to 15 times for them to be like, okay, I trust this, I'm going to give it a try. Or at that point, they've run out of something. So it's the same thing with like cleaner products. It's like the exposure and people really talking about it. And And, the more we advocate and the more we shop and vote with their dollars, the more these things will come down in price and be accessible. And there are amazing brands doing like really good things and making waves in the industry. So with that said, with the same 15 exposure rule in mind, like talking about it and being open to being like, even if it's just to your friends. I mean, yes, I have a following, but, I go away with people and I'm like, oh, we're using this, cleaning product that I brought from home in this Airbnb. And then they're like, they ignore me. And then like 6 months later, they're like, I heard that Clorox isn't great. Like, what was that thing you used? So it's just, it's exposure. But what's funny, my daughter, I'm totally going to jinx myself and she's going to become a picky eater like tomorrow, but she's a really good eater. The only thing she doesn't love are salmon and avocado, which are just funny and random. But I try every week. I just once or twice a week, she's exposed to them, but she'll eat pretty much anything if it has like a little coconut aminos teriyaki sauce on it or like this girl wants flavor. Like if I give her plain shrimp, she's like, no. If I give her shrimp with like curry powder and sauce and all these flavors, she goes to town. So I think I started early in a good way, but now like,
yes.
We went to a restaurant and I was like, oh, well, and we're not a fan of kids' menus. They're just kind of
terrible.
Just kind of gross, terrible. But I was like, you know what? We're on vacation. Let's order her a side of mac and cheese. And she was like, she would rather have my like lentil pasta with pesto. And I was like, yeah, I think I did it. I think I did good. But I just jinxed it. So tomorrow everything's going to change.
No, when she's 3.
When she's 3, that's how I'm going to get
come
this
back
cut.
and then forward and back. And
Yep.
That's just how life goes.
That's okay. It's part of it. But, and that, that's an interesting topic. And you guys have kids. And I think it's and I think a lot of people would appreciate this conversation. Sorry, not to like ask you guys or not to spearhead this, but I talk about this a lot with random friends, right? So my business is called Lexi's Clean Kitchen, Lexi's Clean Living, whichever you will. And so my kids are going to see me on social media a lot. I do my best. We have screen time. We don't have access to apps from 6 p.m. to 6. Like we really, really try, but my business is on social media. I would prefer kids not to be on social media until they can be responsible with
right?
it. Yeah. Until they're like 100, like never, the people in Silicon Valley who make these apps, their kids aren't on it. It says something, but, talking about food and healthy eating and clean living and what we put in our bodies without two things happening. My kids going to somebody's house and be like, my mommy says that's bad for you. And like me giving them an eating disorder. I'm terrified of that. I don't want, and it's the same thing with TV. Like, right. I only have one child. So I'm sure if I'm blessed to have more children, TV might just be part of it. But right now we're not big TV watchers, so it's just easy to avoid. This is a no judgment. I don't judge people who watch TV with their kids, but like, I also don't want it to be such a forbidden fruit that when it's on, she's glued to it. Like, part of me is like, should it be on in the background so she doesn't care about it? It's the same. It makes me think of like things like that with like social media, with food. Like she's poor thing, not going to have goldfish. She might have like the Simple Mills crackers that are like cheesy, but like I'm just probably not going to bring goldfish in the house. I'm sure she'll have it when she goes to a friend's house, and that will be another thing. But I don't want her to be like, oh, these foods are bad. Like, I want to make it clear that like, we try to eat to nourish our bodies and to feel good, but it's hard, and especially with a daughter. It's just something I think about.
I think it lives a lot in language that it's not that these are bad foods. It's that these foods don't help us optimize our bodies, and they don't help us become who we know we want to be and perform at the level we want to perform at. It's not about good or bad. And you're not a bad person for eating it, and they're not bad foods. It's simply that those foods don't fit into the narrative of how can we be as healthy as possible. That's all it's about.
And I think I've even asking questions, right? Like, how did you feel after all that Halloween candy? Like, or maybe not wording it like that, but like kind of being curious how they felt. And they might be like, you know what? I really didn't feel great. depending on their age or whatnot. But it's just an interesting thing that I think about a lot. And I talk about it. Most mom friends or parent friends that I talk to that are in a healthier, cleaner space are concerned about that. Like as their kids grow up, navigating it. And you don't always have the best languages. I'm going to say this, this, and this, and I'm going to say it right. And that's just not always reality,
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So what is from when people talk about a social media detox, you were talking a little bit about that, just to bring it back a little bit. What does that?
Well, why?
Why and what does that look like? Like, what's your
Why, what, and
recommendation?
how?
I mean,
why, what, how, and all in between. So something I realized, it wasn't when I started working from home. It was in the past 2 years, or a few years, I guess, was I was sleeping like crap when I was browsing on my phone on Instagram or whatever. It wasn't even working. I was just like opening up the app I don't even know how the app got open.
Magic.
It's just automatic. Your finger goes there. It's wild. So, in thinking about I was like, I'm not sleeping great. I'm definitely on my phone too much. And this is pre-kids. So me and Mike, what we did, and this is very easy to do if you have an iPhone, is we set passwords. So it's called screen time on your iPhone. I actually have a whole post about it. And so you pick which apps you're not going to have access to from whatever time to whatever time works for you. It doesn't mean you can't get for phone calls or text messages. There's emergency. Like I have Uber. I have, I don't know, Grubhub. I have certain apps that I use. But like, let's say, I'm like, you know what? Like, or Mike's vice is Twitter. He does on no social media, but he really likes to browse the craziness that is Twitter. And so we have these screen time passwords set on. And if Mike wants to sit on Twitter for an hour a night, I have to give him his password and vice versa, and I'm like, no, I will not give you your password tonight. And it's just kind of funny. Obviously, if we're traveling, we'll give it to one another, but it's been the biggest game changer. So I don't have access to any social media apps, email, nothing from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. I used to be 8, but I have an employee out. So I have to pick up a little slack. And it is the best. There is no reason to be on my phone at night unless obviously there's an emergency and someone needs me, but then they can get in touch with me. And it's been amazing. So that's every day of our lives. Like we're never on our phones at night. It's really awesome. And it's an easy thing to do in the app. It's just literally turning on screen time, someone putting in a password and you not knowing the password. And it's amazing what happens is like when I go away, if I travel for work and Mike gives me the password and I come back and he forgets that I have the password and then like the screen time kicks in and I press ignore or I put in the password, it could be a few weeks before I admit it and I say, hey, I need a new password. Like enough is enough. Like I see it on my phone more when I'm with my family. Like it's just, no one needs to be on the internet at all hours of the day. But social media, so that's sort of a social media detox. That's just kind of become a lifestyle choice that we've made. But a social media detox in definition is kind of like shutting off for a weekend. So again, it doesn't mean you can't get a text or a phone call. I feel like every time I talk about this, people are like, well, I need an access to my phone. It's like, of course, no one's saying you have to put your phone away for life. But it's just shutting off. And sometimes, especially like, my world is social media, not true. Much of my business is on social media. So people are like, huh? Why would you? One, I need it. It's important. It's important for everyone. We all get stuck in the cycle of scrolling and playing the comparison game. Like all the people saying to me, your dinners are perfect. I'm like, no, you don't see my dinners because I don't have access to Instagram. I can't show you them. But you see what's in the feed and that's me sharing recipes because my website is my business. And we share amazing recipes, but it doesn't mean that's what my dinner looks like every night with a perfect photograph and, all that perfectly styled. But so like taking a weekend. What about a challenge, right? Like taking a Saturday and being like, I'm going to put it away. I'm not going to go on. And it's hard to the point where sometimes you have to delete an app because you can't help it. You know, you open your phone and there's Instagram or there's your email. Email's a tough one. So Mike, before we had screen time, he has screen time actually. Like he doesn't have any, like his is like 8 p.m. to 7:59. Like he doesn't let himself have access to literally anything. It's wild. He's really disciplined.
He's very disciplined.
I am not that way. But it works for him. But he would delete the Gmail app. And so if you really needed to check an email or really want to, and sometimes you have to, like we live in this world, you know, we're not monks. We don't live in somewhere where we have jobs. He would have to go to the Chrome or Safari and open it and then type in the password. I mean,
it's friction.
Can I curse? A pain in the ass enough to not want to do it unless it was really necessary, you know? So I always say to people, if you're interested in it, try the screen time. It might be really helpful and lovely. Or just see if you could just take 2 hours and just put it away. It's hard. It's really hard. We live in a crazy world. They're meant to be addictive.
This has been really amazing. Unfortunately, feels like we're running out of time.
Yeah, so you know me. I could talk all day, so cut me off.
We love chatting with you.
Is there like maybe 2 or 3 things that you want to leave people with? That what's the top 3 things you recommend to start their clean living journey?
Yeah. Quick takeaways. Focus on sleep, your stress. If you're struggling, talk to someone, like go to therapy. It's, you know, clean up a few things in your diet. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Just be easy on yourself. We're living in really hard times. A lot of people with pandemic fatigue and being in the house and just there's a lot going on. Be easy on yourself. It's hard, but prioritizing those small things that you can, like sleep. Put your phone away 3 hours before bed and I promise you'll sleep better. Like little things like that. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to throw out every single thing in your pantry to make better choices. You know, start with meet yourself where you're at and don't beat yourself up. That would be my takeaway.
That's awesome. Where can people find you, Lexi?
Well, Lexi's Clean Kitchen everywhere. Website, lexiscleankitchen.com, social media, Instagram, Facebook, Lexi's Clean Kitchen, Pinterest, all the places.
Everything, you got it all.
Now on TikTok, we're doing
nice.
it.
Nice.
I would show my bloopers on TikTok, you know, like when something fell and you're like, oh,
I know.
There's dinner.
Yeah, we actually did a blooper and it was like me just like trying to repeat myself over and over, like, you know, say something and it was just like fail after fail. But I know I need to do more bloopers. I'm starting to do more kitchen hacks, like, you know, spraying a little avocado oil spray in your teaspoon before you do the honey and then it pours right out all easily. So, you know, just experimenting. But yeah, Lexi's Clean Kitchen everywhere. And I hope to meet many of you.
Yes. So thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me and keep in touch.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Live Like You Matter on the 5 Journeys podcast.